Today is March 14th, 2021, and I am sitting with my friend Mimi, who I met through another friend, Sophie, and her dad, and we are in for a treat because her dad is going to talk to us about Nowruz, which is the Persian or Iranian celebration of spring and the new year. So since he's been here, he has played my djembe drum, played the flute. I mean, what else can I say? So again, I start my podcast by telling people how I know the people that I'm speaking to. And as I earlier said, I know Mimi, who is accomplished in her own way. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you, Mimi?
Yeah. So I'm a first-generation immigrant. My dad came here from Iran, and I grew up learning the culture and celebrating Nowruz with my dad. My dad has always been into music and poetry. He used to invite his friends over, and they'd all talk about, the different poems, and some of it was Farsi, some of it was English. And he also taught me the loving collectivist culture that they have in the Middle East, where you invite anyone, to dinner, and you always have a house full, and there's always room at the table for someone else, even if you're not expecting it. You go with the flow. So all these things, I've been taught from my dad, who at heart, he is a musician. Yeah, and music is his number one passion in life. So, he's here to talk to us a little bit about Nowruz and play some of the traditional music. When he grew up in Iran, all he wanted was a flute. And he didn't have any money to buy one until he came to America. So he got to America and he got his flute, and then he was set on his way down the path to musical masterpieces.
Well, we are here today to talk about Nowruz. Nowruz is a combination of two words. No means new, and Ruz means day. And this is a relationship between a nature and human. The nature on the first day of spring, which is the 20th of March or maybe 21st, and where the equinox supposedly is changing its axle. And we used to have a Sofreh Haft Seen, which has regular foods and everything, plus the 7 things that starts with the S.
And the ceremonial table that you set up to bring in the New Year's.
Thank you, Mimi. Yes. And these 7 things are about really 7 things of life. So every one of these has some kind of meanings. We all can, look them up on Google.
They all start with the letter S, like serkeh is coins.
No, serkeh is the vinegar, and the serkeh is the money, and the seeb is the apple. Samanu is some sweets, that we make with sugar and the starches, and all the 7 things. But the real meaning of this is excuse to get together, party, and revisit the people we used to hate. So in this day, everybody is welcome, and even your enemies are welcome to your house, or you go visit them. And in return, when we were a kid, to make it a little bit exciting, they give you some cash, which is like a present. And we couldn't wait for the Nowruz to get some money and go buy some toys and, pleasures and sweets and stuff like that.
And also, for when you're a kid, for Nowruz, that's the time of year that you get a new outfit, to wear a New Year's outfit.
Oh, yes, that's the nature is turning green. Another word, they changes their dress. And we supposed to have new outfits, shoes, dress, whatever, clothing. And we go visit our family and friends.
So, how would you say, when you were younger, when you were living in Iran, and how you celebrated with your family, when you had children and when you got married, were you able to bring those traditions and do the same thing with your children?
Of course, in this country, because of the hustle bustle that's going on, I try to keep the tradition alive, where we did celebrate and we sit at the table, of the Haft Seen, and we used to put a egg on a mirror, and that's supposed to change when the new year starts, and the egg should roll, but most of the time it didn't. We kicked the table.
It's used to show how the equinox of how the Earth is rotating on an axis one way, and then around New Year's, the equinox, the Earth starts rotating the other way. So the egg is supposed to move.
And
Yeah.
just so you know, this entire concept came up because, as those of you who listen to my podcast know, I live in Florida, and the Orlando Museum of Art is currently having an exhibit which is called A Boundless Drop to a Boundless Ocean. And so the entire exhibit actually is a collaboration between local artists here in Florida and artists in Iran. And I would highly recommend for those that are listening in Florida for you to go and to take a look. And so there's an actual quote from a Lebanese artist, which some of you may be familiar with, Kahil Gibran. And so that was the foundation of how they came together, the artists, and, curated the different art, which I would highly recommend you go and see. And I know I did a little bit of reading, but of course, it's so much more better when you have actual, family members who this is what they celebrate, as opposed to me. I'm learning about what Nowruz is. And for those that don't know, Iran is rich in history. I mean, I can't even begin to speak about the history. Maybe Mimi's father will touch on that in a minute, a little bit. But what I wanted to say, there are numerous Persian poets, artists. One of my favorites is Rumi. And at the end of the podcast, I'm going to share with you some of his poetry. So, like all cultures, there's music, there's art, food. I mean, in my culture and that of most of my friends, everything revolves around family. Like you said, having people come to your home, you share what you have, even if you don't have much to share, but it's all done, out of love and to bring people together.
So, one important thing about poetry, the reason is they use poetry is because poetry is transferred from chest to chest. When something rhymes, there's no way that you can change what's being said. So there's a lot of uncertainties about, for example, U.S. history or the Bible. There's several versions, and a lot of things change over time, and nobody really knows what the real original version was. But in terms of poetry, it's stayed the same for thousands of years. And my dad comes from the town Shiraz, which is where Persepolis or Takht-i Jamshid is from. And it was the ancient civilization. They had universities there, 2,000 years ago, and it was a very sophisticated society. So my dad can fill you in a little bit more on what Shiraz is like and what growing up in Shiraz was like in the modern era versus the older era.
Well, of course, there is lots of references that you can, refer to on Google. We are not here to talk about those because if you're a seeker, you can find out yourself. But the main thing is that Jamshid, the king, which is, by the way, my name is Jamshid, and this king was a very kind king, very influential, very powerful, and everybody lived in peace for a long time under his rule. And many things was discovered in this era, including wine, where, for instance, they didn't used to punish people, but they used to give them leftover food. And one day they find out, some people got grapes and the
prisoners were eating rotten grapes.
Yeah, and they got crazy, and the king says, "What is going on?" And they find out, they had some fermented grape, and they got drunk, and so the king started, the winery and created the wine, and one of his other creation was the Nowruz, which everybody had to celebrate, and that comes from King Jamshid, where he made it a proclamation that everybody has to celebrate in this day. And obviously there was wine and people get together, and music and poetry. So from those days, thousands of years ago, we are used to, these kind of celebration, but basically these are for people to get together and exchange ideas. And as Mimi said, the poetry was just for remembering, and the things that because before it wasn't no recorder, and also handwriting was by
not everybody could read.
No, it wasn't. It was difficult to even to. We're talking before whatever thousands of BC, where there was no writing popular. No paper. So you had to basically made it rhyme so you can remember it. Thanks to the cell phones now, everybody can record anything. As we are speaking right now is recorded. So you see, these are the things that passed on, generation to generation until it got to us.
And so before we started the recording, I have a collection of oracle cards, and they're based upon the writings of Rumi. And so I pulled one, and the one that came out was number 6. It was called One. And so what it says, and this is an actual poem by Rumi, it says...
A translation.
In English, because I don't know. Do you know the original?
No, but just saying it's not it's an actual translation of a poem.
Okay.
Because some things are very hard to translate. I remember as a kid, my dad would, because I'm half American, I would sit there and I would ask my dad to translate a poem. In certain places, he would end up stuttering and say, "Well, we don't have that word in English," So I'm sure these Rumi things are, a good translation.
Absolutely, and that's very important to know. And I forget because I had Googled, and there is a scholar. He's, I believe, Iranian. He has, to the best of his knowledge, translated like the entire works, which I'm thinking,
wow,
I might treat myself. So before we finish, I'm going to get my iPad and see if I can't share that with everybody. But so this is called One. It says, "I have abolished duality from myself. I have seen the two worlds as one. One I seek, one I know, one I see, and one I call. And then it also has further words, which I don't know if it's supposed to illuminate those thoughts, but for me, what I so appreciate about Rumi is that words can't really describe his poetry. The sense that I get when I read something that he's written, it's like, whoa. It really causes you to think and to pause, and I think that should be the purpose of poetry, which is to make you think. And his poetry seems to be so lyrical, mystical, divine, spiritual. At least that's what it represents to me. I don't know if you have that sense, or if you have that sense as well.
Yes, of course. The thing about the Persian poetry is, in order to understand it, you have to be Persian. This is a little bit too much to ask, but the real meaning of these relates to other signs, other slangs, other customs and culture, so you understand the whole thing. But if you want to understand the surface, yes, you can, listen to Khayyam, which is translated in English by Fitzgerald. So you guys can, look at that. And those are a lot of poetry that is very popular in England, and it's been translated by English person. But, many of them, like Rumi, for instance, is a very popular philosopher as well as the poet and holy man, basically all together. So you can get a glimpse of, what he's talking about. Looks like basically they have been here before, and they have seen the other dimension. So if you, for instance, understand or you want to know about Rumi, he wrote 7,000 poem basically to say one thing, and that one thing is present tense. And we really we can't live in the present tense, as you know right now. A Mickey Mouse version of that is called meditation, where you can sit somewhere and, that does not mean that. It means that bringing all your senses to a present tense, because as you know, our senses are being gravitated to the past and a little bit to the future. Just like a squirrel bringing a seed and make it to a tree and have a party and have all his friends invited, and there is so much things of past is occupying our brain that we cannot live in the present tense. And in reality, of course, we cannot live in present tense because our brain is kept going to the back, and the best way to do it, they say, use your breathing and think about it as you're sitting in the tube in the ocean, and a ship is coming to you, and the ship is basically your thoughts of the past, and you cannot fight with the ship, so you just have to basically touch and go away, and let it go. So these thoughts all bombarding your brain all the time. And if you get involved, you drown in it, and you're not living, basically. And what Rumi wanted to prove or say in all these books, volumes that he wrote, and the poetry, is to get you back to the present tense. And we don't have words for the present tense, verbs for the present tense. It's very hard, for us in century 21 to live in the present tense. And that's why we have all these problems, all these diseases, that we cannot rest because stress and everything is like acid coming to our body, and our body tries to basically protect itself, creating cholesterol, and later on it becomes thickness in your arteries, and you get the blood pressure and things like that, where if you don't have a stress, if you don't get acid in your body, then you can just basically not have these problems. So bottom line is all these things are for you to be a better person or be a healthier person, because the soul is basically in a healthy body, not in broken one. And if your body is healthy, more chances are that you are a holy person, and you can take care of this gift that is temporary. And we have another poet which called Hafiz, which he has altogether Rumi philosophy, and basically he got everything together, and it says that this body that I borrowed from whatever, God or something, I like to one day see it and give it back to him.
I think all the points that you raised are really important. And for me, this past year, because we're just coming up on the 1 year anniversary of when COVID really hit on a global basis. And so I call it a global timeout, where people were unable to do what they normally did. They weren't able to necessarily be with family and friends. And it was a time for people to be still, because how most people are so busy, like you said, being stressed about everyday life. Gotta work, gotta make money. You have children, you have husbands, wives, significant others. You're so busy doing, you never allow yourself a few moments to just be still, to go, if you're fortunate, as we are in Florida, to have weather which is good weather most of the time. I mean, there's sunshine practically 365 days out the year, where you can, if you're fortunate enough to live somewhere where you can go in your backyard, where you can listen to the birds, where you can lay or in a hammock or just be still and watch the birds. I go in my yard all the time, and hawks and crows and cardinals and other birds, they come, and it's so peaceful. So during this global timeout, some people use the time to go inward, to really be still, and it was such a drastic change for everybody throughout the world. Valuable lessons could be learned if you were willing, to just like be still
and listen.
Yes. And so I always say to people, you have a choice. Things are slowly, kind of, sort of slowly, they will never ever be the way they were, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We've adapted, and as humans, that's what we do. We adapt. I mean, your culture has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Why? Because people adapted. We too have to adapt. What lessons can we learn from what we have all experienced? What can we learn from each other, from different cultures, which is the whole premise behind me doing, podcasts, which is called Ancestral Muses, because we can learn from each other from different cultures. We really are one, which is why I always say there are no coincidences, only synchronicities, which is why it was kind of cool that when I was looking at the oracle cards, the card that came out right before you all came was one. And throughout my life, I've been very fortunate to travel and to meet people from all over the world. And what I've always learned is if you are willing to have an open heart and an open mind and just talk to people, even though sometimes there can be language barriers, but there's always something. Food is a good example. You don't really need language per se to deal with food, but you can always find that you have something in common with somebody if you're willing to step outside for what a lot of people step outside their culture. I mean, and outside their comfort zone because they know nothing. They have all these misconceptions. But really, the truth of the matter is we are all one, and we can all learn from each other.
Absolutely. They say when the student is ready, the master will show up. Why? Because we have to just relax, slow down until we get the vibes. And in United States, we have something as far as creation and the new things come in and make millionaires. Before, they used to call them creation as far as God, for instance, created the man and said this is the top of the line creation. Why? Because when you create, you don't compete. Therefore, the things that you basically create are the one that is gonna be last of you, not your body, not your money, not anything that you have. Your thoughts are the one that as soon as it's being created is gonna be in the air. And every once in a while, one of us quietly get to these thoughts and we make a millionaire, whatever, but actually it's the shoulder of the people we are standing up on. And these are the taps, that we did, to those thoughts that, made us come up with this idea where if you open, parachute is only effective when it's open. When you open, maybe those ideas and those thoughts come to you. And in this hustle bustle life that we created with the commercialized consumer, they made us, in the United States. So we really don't have time, as you said, we don't have time, to sit down and, basically we have kids, we have bills, we have this and that, there is no time for that moment of silence. And whoever is come up with the music or idea and whatever, if you really go and ask them, they say they got it, in the silence. So the silence is the partner. And in those silence, in those time where those poetry come, and these people, they try to keep it and give it to us. They couldn't give it to us without poetry. They had to put it in some kind of package so that we can, pass it on.
I was showing Mimi when I was doing research, when I was trying to educate myself a little bit, and I came across an author who has compiled a book, and it's called, what is it called, Persian Kings?
Yeah, I actually recognized the name that was there. It was another poet, actually, I think.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Ferdowsi, Dad?
Yeah, Ferdowsi is basically the one basically kept the Persian Empire together and kept the language, because as you know, when the Arabs conquered the world, and many countries like Egypt, they became Arabs, because they were actually North African, but they acquired the language. So Ferdowsi, not only he was a good, poet, but he kept the language to Farsi only, and basically kept the Iran as it is right now. Otherwise, we would have spoke Arabic, or some of the Spain, speaking Arabics and stuff like that. So he has, if you can understand one of his infinite things that we are, is that he wanted to create two basically armies to fight, and he didn't have enough room in Iran, so he had to make it in Africa. So he really goes out of the way to create our possibility, and how we are infinite, basically. Where we come to Earth, we make ourselves very small, and the society makes us very small, where we are endless, infinite, and we can basically be a part of the whole universe.
And
So,
you raise another interesting point, which is, I've always loved history and world history, because we didn't come here by happenstance. We really are all connected. Our history is connected. And so it's always upsetting to me that people will say things and they're not coming from a place of knowledge. They're not trying to get knowledge. They're just speaking out there, you know what? And so I think it's very important that people understand world history. And if you're not familiar with world history, then, when I was growing up, we had Encyclopedia Britannicas. So you had to actually go to a library and do research. So I guess you had to be dedicated if you really wanted to learn something. But now, with technology and smartphones, all you got to do is put in a word or phrase, and instantly you have all of this knowledge at your fingertips. So why is it that people don't take the time, or why don't you want to expand yourself, your mind, your universe? Why don't you want to be a perpetual student, a perpetual scholar? I mean, you should learn something new every day. And I hope that when I talk to friends of mine and we do these podcasts, that it will spur you into picking up your phone, doing some research. We're really lucky that in Orlando, and when I grew up in Philadelphia, we had different festivals where we showcased, different people, their culture, their food. And if you have something like that in your community, you should take advantage of it. That's how you learn. I mean, I get that a lot of people can't travel, don't want to travel, don't have a passport, think that it's very expensive to travel, which that's not true. I mean, you can learn something in your own city that maybe you didn't know. And in terms of international travel, yes, you need a passport. And yes, moving forward, we'll probably have to document that either, you took the COVID vaccine, or you can get a note from a doctor saying, your immune system has been compromised in such a manner that you can't take it. But the world is just a click away on your phone. You can Google any place in the world, YouTube. I mean, you have all these resources at your fingertips. It literally gives you a different way of viewing yourself and how you fit into the world, because we are global. And I want people to understand that the world we live in is a global world. It is international.
I guess, let me just make sure that you said we are not global, we are connected globally.
Yes.
In other words, so if she knows something, for me to understand it is just basically is a click away. So why can't we just go to that point, go to the place that really we are connected, and we are basically one, as Sadi, one of the poets, said. We are a part of each other, and if one part is sick or weak or whatever, the whole body hurts. Just this is in Farsi. I can say it, but you all can look at it. It says Bani Adam اعضای یکدیگرند که در آفرینش ز یک گوهرند, means the humans are a part of one fabric, where that from the creation are the same jewel, whatever, it's make it from the same mold, whatever. And if one part gets sick or weak, the whole body is weak. And yet we are in the process of beating each other and exercising our power, even though we have everything in life, and we're gonna hurt others by power, not by food or shelter.
And what you said in Farsi is reminiscent. There's a somewhat similar concept, South African Ubuntu, which is something similar. I am who I am because of who you are. Mm-hmm. And it talks to how we are all connected to each other.
Yeah. The philosophers, the people, the past, they try to explain these things to us. And just like a parents, sometimes we forget we are parents because we are in the work environment, or politics, or some other things, that has nothing to do with who we really are. And the results sometimes is not very good for us. And we draw a different conclusion, and we become prejudiced, where if you look at our references, and if we had these information people in our references, we don't feel like prejudice, because I know that thing, I know that, and I'm not going to be swayed by radio commercial or newspaper news. So we always go back to our root. So there is many things that poetry, philosophy, music, and other art, painting basically teach us that we normally don't get. Lately I've been be interested in the painting, where you can easily change a canvas. So the way you want it, so if we don't see it the way it should be, we can be a little bit proactive and change the color, change the texture, whatever, to see a better picture.
And so when I was doing research, so that people can understand that the celebration of Nowruz is not like a one-day celebration. It takes place over a period of days.
Absolutely. That one is actually, it's a good question. It goes on for 13 days. And on the 13 days, you're supposed to take off the Haft Seen, basically, which is the green part, which is the sabzeh, which means green. You just grow some
lentil sprouts,
lentils, or grains, and you wrap it with the ribbon, and you put it on the I think Jewish people do the same thing a little bit, and it's green. And then on the 13 days, you take it out. Everybody's supposed to go out. They call it sabzeh bedar, means in this day everybody should be out in the nature and find some water and put the green in the water. And there is another things for the singles that they do is that you get these sabzeh. Basically, you tie them and you throw them, and hopefully
You tie 2 pieces, so you sprouts and you put it on the celebratory Haft Seen table, and you let the new life go in the water. But when you're looking for a new love, you tie some of those sprouts together to tie the knot, and you let it go in the water.
How
and
cool is
hopefully
that?
the
Someone.
next year you come in with the kid in the hand in your arm.
Under the arm.
So that's symbolic of new life, the symbol of new life.
That's right. So if you're single, then you should really do a lot of tie-in.
So what role, because I think I read something about a fire and jumping over a fire or something like that.
Oh, that is called Charshambe Suri, which means the last Wednesday of the year. I don't know all about the details of it, but again, this one is also symbolic. It means that that means that when you well, I tell you the custom, and then I can let you go find out why they call it that. On the last day of on the last Wednesday, you're supposed to make a fire, and you jump on the fire, and you sing that my yellowness is to you and your redness to me. I don't know how to translate that, but it means that you are pushing everything away and burning all your meanness and grudges toward people, and you basically put them in the fire and burn them up.
Cool. So
And you take the good warm stuff
Yeah.
from the fire. The
That's
nice
right,
red.
and you get the red and the flourish thing to yourself. Yes.
So it's an opportunity again to let go of the old, get rid of bad energy, karma, whatever, and welcome in the newness, which is the green, which is what spring is all
Right,
about,
yeah.
a new beginning.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's it's like a cleansing thing that you do, before New Year's resolution, to get ready, some spring cleaning right before
Yeah.
the first day of spring.
Another thing about this is the energy. You heard about we are energy, and they say we are basically atoms, and God created us because He wanted to be in rest. What that means is electron usually have like a negative bar at the skirt of the neutron and proton, and what happened, this energy is basically being shifted. Like money, for instance, is some kind of energy. It's going to be shifted from this way or that way. One day you're poor, you're maybe rich the next day. Basically, we are a combination of atoms, and these atoms are traveling, and if you fill up one of those with the positive, then you're at rest. Now they say we are in black hole, for instance. So why? Because even though if you have them in the laboratory, when you mix these two, we don't see them. It's kind of going to rest, basically. So the energy is going to be the fire is basically the energy is being shifted every day, and we don't know what bring us tomorrow, and but that's basically we creating hope. And Mother Teresa basically described the hope better than anybody else. And I heard this story from a Reuters news that Mother Teresa goes to Arizona to open a old folks place, and the reporter come and talk to him and to her and say, we can raise millions of dollars for your cause. And Mother Teresa said, I don't really need this, I'm here to just do an opening. And so the reporter doesn't give up and basically come to her room the next day. In front of the room, when Mother Teresa come out, he say, is there anything I can do for you? And Mother Teresa says, yes, I want you to go to Arizona's street tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock and find somebody who is alone and prove him wrong.
So, Mimi, what are some of your memories of celebrating Nowruz with your family?
Well, I think that everybody looks forward to getting together for New Year's, but I would say as a kid, obviously the most exciting thing was the AD money that we would get because everybody would stand in a line and you kiss on both cheeks as your family members walk by, and a lot of times people give $50 and $2 bills, just like it's something different and something cool for New Year's.
Something new, the money, brand new.
Yeah, the $2 bills and $50 are usually really crispy. All the money is, you go to the bank and you ask the bank, do you have new bills? Do you have the crispy ones?
Wow.
And my uncle would do a thing where he had a sack, like one of a bag, or a pillowcase, and he would put mystery bills in there. And everybody would reach in, and there'd be 100 in there, and
wow.
there would be some ones, and
mostly ones, or twos.
But you could get lucky and get $100 bill.
But there is a few hundreds in there,
My cousins, we would always compete, who has the best hand to be able to feel the hundreds, who has the touch.
Like, does it feel different, really?
Yeah, well,
no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But when you get it, you say, of course I could feel it. I know. I've got the magic touch. And we would all get really competitive, over that. And, whoever won, it was a big deal, So I liked the times of getting together with our cousins, the rivalry, and also just having fun. One of my favorite days is the seeb, the last day. Everybody goes to the park, and they really go all out. They bring tents, they bring their Persian rug, they bring kebab, they bring enough tea to feed an army. Everybody brings way more food and drink than they can have.
And the soup, the ash.
And ash, yeah, which is like a soup.
Usually it's cool weather, and you need something warm you up.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're outside and it might be 50s, 60s, and so you have some really hot soup and you play volleyball or go on the playground, and it's a time where you can just kind of run around the park and see everybody in the Persian community. Even though we're here in America, the park near our house used to have 10,000 people there.
Wow.
So you would have 10,000 people. You go run around with your cousins and you go see all the acquaintances.
And everybody offers you food or sweets.
Yeah, everybody offers you, you go and say, oh, I haven't seen you in a really long time, one of my dad's friends or something, and they're like, oh, really, come have some kebab, did you want some tea, have some ash, and you sit around, you talk, you catch up, and you walk, around. They like to have dance competitions, and stuff. They film for TV in Iran, so people over there can see that in America too, everybody's celebrating, and it's just a big day to be open and free. And me and my cousins, we just have so many adventures because you're on the playground with God knows how many kids, and they're all Persian, and you're just like, everybody's out there playing, and I would say that was probably one of my favorite days. And also jumping over the fire, sometimes we would make the fire extra big, And, things get risky, but we would do it anyway just for, bragging rights. And we've got some really cool photos. I have one cousin that jumped over a fire that was like 5 feet tall or something.
My goodness.
And we got a perfect shot of it. Of course, he had to do it a couple times and, almost burn himself.
Of course, we're not going to show that to you.
Of course
Yeah.
not. But the point is, and this is what I think is what I want people to get, is that, for so many of us, so many people have no sense of family or community.
Yeah.
And they don't know what you're talking about. And, family doesn't have to be your blood.
Yeah.
It can be family and friends. It can just be like we're sitting here. We've been sitting here. We've been talking. We've been laughing. We've had tea. Your father's played my drum. He's played the flute. I mean, this is what is lacking. This is what people need to do.
Yeah.
You need to take time and get with people or maybe you don't know, and create the sense of what we have created here. Celebrate each other. Celebrate life.
Yeah. So in Iran, like when my dad grew up, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you used to get like 13 days off for New Year's? That was your spring break at school?
That's it.
Yeah, so usually the American spring break would line up, around the beginning of spring break.
Exactly.
But sometimes it wouldn't line up and we would be able, to skip a day of school or something for whatever kind of celebration we were having. And, that's something that, growing up here, I kind of am like, I would love to see what is the real 13-day celebration like, here versus Iran. Because here we celebrate the Charshamba Suri, where you jump over the fire. You usually celebrate New Year's Day, and then, you celebrate the 13th day. But in between that, there's not very much going on, or at least I haven't seen it here in America. Whereas in Iran, it's every single day, and it's kind of like everybody's out of work, everybody's out of school, and like the whole country is partying,
Well, see, hopefully, if you, are here in the future, maybe this is something we can do. It's the same thing with Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a cultural event, and it's 7 days, and I always have people come to my house the first day. This last year was the first time that the Orlando community, we started planning, and every day of Kwanzaa, there was a public celebration, which is as it should be.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's something we can work on.
Exactly.
For the future. And then I can get the true flavor of what, it would be like to celebrate Nowruz for 13 days.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, one of the poets in Iran, Hafiz, says the best time was the time that I spent with friends. The rest was actually, how do I say that? It was lost.
It's always interesting when you are speaking to someone that is from a different culture, and it's like you're trying to express yourself, and there may not be words that translate to what you're trying to say. So then you're trying to think of, well, what's the next best word that fits in that situation?
Yeah, and also there's a lot of metaphors. So like my dad, it's kind of like riddles, Sometimes my dad would translate stuff and he would be laughing or super excited, and he would translate it for me, and I'd be like, what? Like, I don't get it. But you have to know the metaphor of when someone says this, they're referring to some story or some movie or some ancient tradition.
Yes.
And so the exact words being translated, you don't quite get it. And then certain slogans,
it's like
there's no words.
understanding the culture. It's like if you know a language, that's something, but you understand the culture, that's something else.
I agree.
So it is not just the word we speak; it's the things that made us.
I agree. And thank you for sharing.
Appreciate it.
Would you like to play the flute for us one last time? And then we can end, or play the drum, or anything you would like to do to close out our discussion?
So one of my dad's favorite songs that I grew up to, I had to learn how to sleep through, was called Chera Nemirafsi, which means, why aren't you dancing? Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why aren't you dancing? And the song goes on. So this is a song.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have. How do you say thank you?
Merci.
Merci. Oh, French. You see what I'm saying, people? Culture it's all related. There are words that in all cultures mean the same thing.
Yeah. One very fun fact is growing up, my best friend was Russian, and I was over at her house, and a lot of the kitchen utensils and gadgets, let's see.
Like this one, Gori.
Yeah, Gori, the teapot. Changal is a fork. A lot of the words were the same in Russian, but they put, we say estakan for a tea glass, but in Russian they say stakan,
Wow.
and they put a Russian accent to it. So it's because, Dad, did you say that the tea stuff came from Russia, or all the utensils, or the other way around, or some?
Or China, like the China, like for many years we used to call China the
Fine China?
thing is Chinese,
Chinese, right?
Chini, yeah. This is called Chini, means
Yes.
yeah. So at the beginning, everything was one, and we are from the one, and if we don't think that way, then we're gonna have problems.
And that's why I challenge you to get your phones out and to Google. Let your fingers do the walking and find out how once upon a time the world as we know it was all connected.
Yeah, even the continent, if you look at the map, was one.
The Pangea, right?
No, the Africa was connected to India. The India connected to Asia.
Exactly, and that's why if you have an opportunity to travel, or if you have to travel via YouTube or Google, you will see when you visit different continents where you can see the evolution of how when people migrated or immigrated to different areas, they brought their customs with them, and then it became integrated into wherever they were, and how these things still live on. And just really quickly, the drum, the djembe drum, which this is a West African drum, in every country I have ever visited, drumming, the drum has been significant, and it may be called something different, but drumming exists, and to me, drumming is like the heartbeat of who we are.
Well, as far as the music concerned, all music, the root of any music in the United States and the world, you can say, came from Africa. And the reason for that is if you look at the base of every music is the beat, and the new beat makes the new songs and makes somebody famous, and that happened when you put your hands together, like clap. So they started with that, and then started with wood, bone, whatever they could find, and then they came up with So you see, anything that you have a rhythm, because life has a rhythm, so you get into it, and you start basically your screws get loose, you know. So